In Monster Hunter World, there are many aspects to consider when taking on a hunt. The target, your weapon, these are all important, but hunters who want optimal performance need to consider the build they use via their armour and gear they wear. I'm Darcblade, and here are even more builds that I use for the Gunlance. The skills that you can gain from armour and even some weapons can help shape your hunter into specialised hunter machines. The Gunlance isn't a straightforward weapon. It does have straightforward damage options in the form of its lance attacks, it has access to fixed damage options in the form of its shelling attacks, and it also has defensive options thanks to the massive shield. However, this all comes at the cost of mobility. Nonetheless, these builds utilise all these aspects, creating some of the most functional builds you can have for endgame hunts. So the first build I use is the Elementalist build version 2.0. This is a Elementalist build that focuses more on swing lance playstyle than shelling attacks. Nonetheless, it does have access to shelling options should you prefer that playstyle. This build also comes with a few health regen options. So for this you'll need the Dragon King Eye Patch Alpha, Nergigante Mel Gamma, Draken Vambraces Alpha, Nergigante Coil Gamma, and the Nergigante Greaves Gamma. I'm also using the Handicraft Charm 3, and for my weapon I'm using the Taroth Buster Poison with a health regen augmentation attached to it. As for your jewels, there's a mixed bag here, but mostly focused on DPS. First of all, an Elementalist jewel to give us that non-elemental boost skill, a Magazine jewel to give us that capacity boost skill, Artillery jewels to max out the artillery skill, Tenderizer jewels to max out weakness exploit, Mighty jewels to max out maximum might, and Flawless jewels to max out peak performance. So if you've done what I've done here, you should have a build with 100 health, 100 stamina, 568 attack, which is actually higher when on a hunt and you have full health thanks to peak performance, white sharpness, 56% affinity, which is actually 100% so long as you have full stamina and are going for monster weak points while on a hunt. You have no element, your shelling attacks are classed as normal level 3, and you have a very high defense that isn't necessarily strong or weak against any element. As for the skills, you have attack boost level 4. As always with attack boost, try to get it to level 4 because at level 4 it gives you that extra 5% affinity, as well as obviously increasing our attack. You have weakness exploit level 3. Weakness exploit gives us an increase to our affinity when we're attacking monster weak points. At level 3 it's 50%. You have handicraft level 3, increasing the sharpness of our weapon. You have peak performance level 3, which increases our overall attack so long as we have full health. You have artillery level 3. Artillery increases the damage of our shelling attacks. For those of you not aware, shelling attacks with the Gunlance deal fixed damage, and the artillery skill is a way of increasing this damage. And as this damage is fixed, it cannot crit, so it is not affected by affinity whatsoever. Anyway, you have maximum might level 3, increases our affinity, so long as we have full stamina. Critical eye level 2, again increasing our affinity. Agitator level 1, a byproduct of the gear, but can be useful. It basically increases our attack and affinity by a small amount when a monster becomes enraged. You have capacity boost level 1, increasing the amount of shells our Gunlance has. You have protective polish level 1. Protective polish allows a hunter to put a protective coating over their sharpness gauge when they sharpen their weapon. This prevents any sharpness loss for a small duration of time. And finally you'll have non-elemental boost level 1. This increases the attack of our weapon as long as it doesn't have an element or that element or ailment is hidden. As for the set bonuses, you'll have Nergigante's Hunger, Haste and Recovery, allowing us to restore health when we attack a monster. This does combine with the health regen augmentation, so potentially allows us to keep peak performance up without having to sheathe our weapon and heal manually. So as you can see, this is a very DPS orientated build, but it focuses more on swing lance attacks than the shelling playstyle. This is mainly thanks to the affinity rating. Now there is a lot of debate to whether the swing lance or shelling playstyle is better, but for me personally I find the swing lance way of playing more fun. And with this build being an elementalist build, it can take on pretty much any hunt, regardless of the monster you're taking on. Anyway, let's move on to the next build, which is the Kya or Shah build. This utilises Shah weapons found from Archtemplar Kulftaroth. This is a straightforward DPS build utilising elements or ailments, and as such, it's also another swing lance build. For the demonstration of this build, I'll be showing off a blast ailment build. So for this build you need the Kaiser Crown Gamma, Kulftaroth's Ire Beta, Kaiser Vambraces Gamma, Kulftaroth's Malice Gamma, and the Kaiser Greaves Gamma. I'm also using an Artillery Charm 3, and for my weapon I'm using the Shah Buster Bomber. This has a health regen augmentation attached to it. As for your jewels, these are mainly DPS ones here. Firstly, I've gone for a Magazine jewel for that capacity boost. I've then gone for Blast jewels to max out the blast attack skill, Tenderizer jewels to max out weakness exploit, a Shield jewel for that guard up skill, Sharp jewel for protective polish, and finally a critical jewel to max out the crit boost skill. So, if you've done what I've done here, you should have a build with 100 health, 100 stamina, 449 attack, with blue sharpness. Unfortunately, this build cannot get to white sharpness. You have 50% affinity, which is actually 100% affinity, so long as you're going for monster weak points. You'll have 410 blast rating with wide level 4 shells, and you'll have a very strong defense, especially against fire and thunder, but you're fairly weak to water and ice. As for the skills, you'll have critical eye level 7, blast attack level 3, blast attack increases the blast rating of a build. You have critical boost level 3, basically this increases the critical damage of our attacks, but only the raw portion of the attack, not the blast portion. You have weakness exploit level 3, artillery level 3, stun resistance level 2, a byproduct of the gear but can be useful for resisting stuns. You have capacity boost level 1, guard up level 1, guard up allows us to block unblockable attacks. Your protective polish level 1 and critical status level 1. Critical status is normally found on the Zora Magdaros set bonus and allows for the ailment portion of our attacks to be increased when we crit a monster. As for the set bonuses, you have Teostra's Technique, Master's Touch, preventing any sharpness loss when we crit a monster, and as this build easily has that 100% affinity when you're going for monster weak points, you shouldn't see much sharpness loss whatsoever. However, this does not apply for when you start to utilise shelling attacks. Master's Touch has no effect on these. Master's Touch only affects the lance attacks of the Gunlance, making Protective Polish useful in fights despite having Master's Touch. So as you can see, this is a pretty straightforward build. Now the artillery and capacity boost could be argued it isn't really needed on this build, but considering the Shah Buster Bomber has level 4 shelling, it adds to our overall DPS. If you were using a different element, I would remind you to switch out the blast jewels to match whatever element or element you are using, and if this is the case and it does have a lower level shelling rating, then you may want to consider dropping the artillery charm for something else. Maybe a health boost for survivability, or handicraft charm if your weapon can get to white sharpness. Nonetheless, this is a great DPS build to use, especially when you're taking into account a monster's weakness. Anyway, let's move on to the next build, which is the Health Regen build. This build focuses on survivability above all else. Nonetheless, it does have some DPS options available to it thanks to peak performance and having the skills related to shelling attacks. So for this build you need the Emperor's Crown Gamma, Valhazak Mel Gamma, Kushala Grips Gamma, Valhazak Coil Gamma and the Valhazak Greaves Gamma. I'm also using the Artillery Charm 3, and for my weapon I'm using the Empress Howl Ruin. This has a health regen augmentation on it. As for the jewels, we've gone for a mixed bag here. Surprisingly, not too many DPS jewels. So I've gone for Vitality jewels to max out health boost, Magazine jewels to add that capacity boost, a Sharp jewel for protective polish, Shield jewel for guard up, Enduring jewels to max out the item prolonger skill, a Charger jewel to max out focus, Medicine jewels to max out recovery up, and an Iron Wall jewel to add the guard skill. So if you've done what I've done here, you should have a build with 150 health, 100 stamina, which is actually 200 health when you're on a hunt and you've taken all the relevant consumables. You'll have 495 attack, which again will be higher while on a hunt thanks to peak performance. You'll have white sharpness, 0 affinity unfortunately. You'll have a 150 blast rating with level 3 wide shelling attacks. When it comes to your defense, you'll have a decent defense, especially against water, but you're fairly weak to fire and dragon. As for the skills, you'll have health boost level 3. Health boost increases our maximum health to that potential 200. You'll have recovery up level 3, increasing the amount of health recovered through healing methods. You'll have recovery speed level 3, increasing the rate at which our health restores itself over time. Normally this is only for the red portion of our health when we've been hit, but when combined with the set bonus that this build has, can mean our entire health bar. You have focus level 3. People may ask, why have you got focus on this build? Well, focus works well when it comes to charged shelling attacks, allowing the gun to charge up faster. You'll have peak performance level 3, increasing the build's maximum attack when you have full health. You'll have artillery level 3, increasing the damage of our shelling attacks. Item prolonger level 3, which is used in conjunction with protective polish. Basically, item prolonger will allow protective polish to remain active for longer, meaning that we'll keep that sharpness high even when we're using shelling attacks. You'll have wide range level 2, a byproduct of the gear, but can still be handy. This is one of the main support skills. It allows a portion of your consumables, your potions and that, for the effect to be passed on to your allies. So when you drink a potion, a small portion of that healing will also go towards your teammates. You have Dragon Attack level 1, a byproduct of the gear. It's not needed on this build whatsoever. Capacity Boost level 1, Guard level 1, which increases the effectiveness of our guard. Guard Up level 1, Protective Polish level 1, and Hasten Recovery level 1. Hasten Recovery is normally found on the Nergigante set bonus, but it can be also found on the Empress Howl Ruin. This allows us to restore health when we're attacking a monster, and it does combine with the health regen augmentation. You'll also have the set bonus Valhazak's Vitality Super Recovery, allowing our health to naturally regenerate itself over time past that red portion of health. So basically this build will have constant health regen, and that combined with recovery up and recovery speed means that we're restoring health at an incredible rate. When we factor in that we're also attacking a monster too, it means this build has very high survivability, especially when we factor in the large shield as well. When it comes to DPS, this isn't the best build for taking down a monster quickly. It does have options, thanks to peak performance and the artillery skill, and it can in a way both use swing lance and shelling playstyles. If you wanted to focus on one over the other, you could make a few changes. For example, if you don't like the shelling playstyle, you could add maybe tenderizer jaws to add some weakness exploit, but the choice is down to you. I've gone for a balance here. I know the Empress Howl Ruin isn't the best when it comes to shelling, but the main focus of this build was survivability and being able to take on a monster comfortably regardless of who you're taking on. Anyway, let's move on to our fourth and final build, which is the Shelling Tank build. This is a high defense build with high survivability and at the same time has high DPS, but has to make use of shelling attacks, namely the charged shelling attacks. So you won't be swinging your lance much with this build, you'll be utilising the firepower of your weapon. So for this build you'll need the Damascus Helm Alpha, the Zora Hide Gamma, Kushala Grips Gamma, Damascus Coil Beta, and the Empress Greaves Beta. I'm also using a Handicraft Charm 3, and for my weapon I'm using the Taroth Buster King. This has a health regen augmentation on it and then an augmentation of your choice. I went for defense increase for more survivability, but at the same time the Taroth Buster King can be replaced with anything you want so long as it has the long shelling type and a shelling level of level 4. As for your jaws, these are mainly defense orientated jaws. I've gone for Vitality Jaws to max out health boost, Artillery Jaws to max out the artillery skill, a Magazine Jaw to add that capacity boost skill, Sharp Jaw for protective polish, Enduring Jaws for that item prolonger skill, Grinder Jaws for that speed sharpening skill, and Defense Jaws to add the defense boost skill. So if you've done what I've done here, you should have a build with 150 health, 100 stamina, which is actually 200 health when you're on a hunt, and you've taken all the various consumables. You have an attack of 449 with blue sharpness. Unfortunately this weapon cannot get to white sharpness. You have 20% affinity, although this doesn't really matter whatsoever on this build, with a fire rating of 240. Again, this shouldn't matter because you'll be focusing on shelling attacks, and you'll have long level 4 shelling attacks. You'll also have a very high defense that is incredibly strong against fire, but a little bit weak to the other elements. As for the skills, you have defense boost at level 3. This is straightforward, it basically increases our defense. You have health boost level 3, increasing our maximum health, focus level 3, handicraft level 3, artillery level 3, item prolonger level 3, speed sharpening level 3. Basically this allows us to sharpen our weapon at an incredible speed, and as we will be utilising shelling attacks, we'll be burning through our sharpness gauge at a very uncomfortable rate. You have tremor resistance level 2. This is a byproduct of the gear but can help resist tremor attacks. You have capacity boost level 1, and finally you'll have protective polish level 1. Unfortunately there are no set bonuses with this build, making it fairly straightforward. So as you can see, it is a high survivability build and there is lots of room for customization. For example, you don't have to go for defense boost if you don't want to, you could take something else like divine protection if you so desire. But regardless, you need to be used to the shelling playstyle for this build to be efficient. Whilst yes, it does have high survivability, it also has strong offense. But the offense is tied to its shelling attacks, not swinging the lance around. So it can take a little bit of time to get used to. But once you've mastered it, this build is incredibly fun to use. Also because shelling attacks deal fixed damage, and the only factor you have to really worry about is what part of the monster you're attacking, this build can be used against any monster, regardless of its weaknesses. For example, in this demonstration, we're fighting Nergigante, who is normally quite resistant to fire. But that doesn't matter because we are not using the lance, which utilises the fire element, on the weapon we're using. We can still bring it down fairly quickly. Just remember, as I said though, the strongest shelling types are normally the long level 4 Gunlances. But alternatively, you could use others so long as they have level 4 shelling. So there we have it, those are more builds that I like to use for the Gunlance. Of course Monster Hunter World is always being updated with new monsters and gear which can potentially cause these builds to change and become even stronger, especially with Iceborne on the horizon. So if any major updates happen to any of these builds, I'll be sure to release updated videos. Remember also that almost any task in Monster Hunter World can be taken on with any weapon and gear set. You don't have to use what is shown in these videos. These are just the sets that I personally like to use. But anyway, I hope you found this video helpful or informative, and until next time, I've been Darcblade, bringing you even more builds that I use for the Gunlance in Monster Hunter World. Hope you enjoyed the video, thanks for watching, subscribe and like for more.